Let's welcome Jason Shah. He's the CEO of do.com.
Thanks, Miles. Yeah, I have a better email address than you. I have j@do.com.
That's pretty good.
But don't email me. You should probably just email
No,
Sarah.
email him immediately, right now.
Great. Well, thanks for that. Yeah. So raise your hand if you've had an unproductive work meeting anytime recently. Like, that's silly. That should not happen. There's no reason why work meetings have to just be this dreadful part of work, and we want to fix that at Do. So as Miles said, my name is Jason Shah. I'm the CEO of Do, and I was previously at Yammer and spent a lot of time thinking about work and meetings, and something you guys might have experienced before. Startup gets acquired, Microsoft's owning the company, you have a lot of meetings, big company. And I felt the pain that it sounds like a lot of people out here felt as well. So we've set out to build a company that fixes this. So I'll just show you the product now. So the way it works is that you basically connect through Google. We pull in all your meetings that you have. So I can connect my personal calendar, I can connect my work calendar, doesn't really matter. And we create a collaborative environment for every meeting on your calendar. So what you're seeing here is just a timeline of all the meetings that I've ever had. And it's infinite scroll, it's pleasant, it's hopefully more delightful than the typical calendar view. But the real power is actually in the meeting itself. So I can click back to today, and let's go even to this event. I've set up an agenda for it. I can take notes. I can mark those notes as follow-ups or action items. I'll give you a better example. I can jump to my timeline here, where I can see my meetings, or I can even search. So imagine, Sarah, you're interviewing people all the time. Maybe you're curious about, what meetings have I had that had anything to do with Uber? What if you could just type Uber in and see every interview you ever did that related to it, or the sharing economy, or 3D printing, and have that information at your fingertips? That's something we'd like to solve. And at Do, so I could just type in weekly team meeting and see all these product conversations we've had and jump in, and I can attach files there. I can also even take, my private notes for the meeting, so I can be like, hey, Jason is crazy. And if I wasn't projecting, nobody would see that. And so in one place, you have your group notes, you have your private notes, all the files live there. There's no back and forth with email, or you'll never be able to find it anyway. And I mentioned follow-ups and takeaways before, and we can talk about, it looks like Pascal is in the audience, just added a note there. I can mark that as an outcome from this meeting. And I can view all these follow-ups here in one place now, and I can jump into any meeting right away. So we had to catch up with our accountant the other day. I can jump right in there. We're talking about shipping the iPhone app, just jump right there. Our daily stand-up from this morning, we ordered from Caviar, so that was a follow-up, but we finished it. Now it's an outcome. If I'm ever feeling depressed, I can see what I accomplished in all my meetings by scrolling through the outcomes. So you never have that feeling of like, what did we actually do in that meeting? It's actually there for you in one place. So soon, we have an Outlook integration coming up. We have a mobile app. Imagine snapping a photo of a whiteboard and it gets sent to everybody who you already have in the meeting. It's kind of silly that you have to go and I'll send it to you in an hour, and then you type in 10 email addresses on your phone. Doesn't really make sense. As you can imagine, you might be asking yourself, how does this integrate with the rest of my workflow? So whether it's project management like Asana, whether it's notes like Evernote, we have some of those integrations and are releasing more soon. So I mentioned private notes. So I can just go ahead and export this to Evernote, and then it's going to go into my Do folder. I can even pull it up to show you guys real quick. And one of the things I hated the most about previous jobs was this meeting happens. Okay, it's bad enough that it's unproductive. Then you have to go and actually, so you're seeing the export there here's the daily stand-up one. So it takes everything, including even my private notes, and sends it out. But one of the things I hated the most was that I have a 30-minute terrible meeting, and then I have to spend 30 minutes summarizing that meeting and sending out the notes. That's even more nonsense than the meeting itself. So now you can just push a button, share with me, share this meeting, and I just got back 30 minutes of my life. If I go over to email, we can have somebody else tonight hopefully solve this problem of email. But there it is, a shared daily stand-up. Oh, Gmail lost the connection. And there's not a ton of notes there, but that's basically, it takes the email summary and ports it out. So anyway, that's basically Do. I'm looking forward to the feedback from you guys. If you have bad work meetings, if you use Google Apps, this could actually be a solution to work meetings. We're in 1,500 companies. We're backed by Salesforce and Tripa Ventures. And if you want less bad meetings, just go to do.com and start using us for your meetings. Thanks.
All right.
So, first question, how did you come up with this system as the best system?
Huh.
Like, what makes you the expert on this is the way to have a productive meeting?
It's a good question. And I guess you wouldn't be a journalist if you didn't ask good questions. So first of all, I'd say we'd be arrogant if we thought we were the end-all be-all experts on good meetings. Second of all, our background, aside from technologists, is we're also a team of social scientists. So I have a sociology background. We spend a lot of time talking to people and understanding this problem and asking them, like, why are your meetings so bad and what are the problems? And it's not that hard. It's not that complicated. It's they start late. There's no agenda. There's no follow-ups afterwards, so it's a waste of time. So it's not that we think we're the absolute best or only way to run a good meeting, but we've asked people who run meetings, how do you run good meetings, and built software that both reflects that as well as has a little bit of opinion saying you should probably have an agenda, because if it's just free form, unless it's a brainstorming meeting, it's probably not going to work. So we've asked people and built software that reflects what we've learned from them.
Can you actually build something that will let us know whether or not you should actually even have the meeting? Because sometimes there's meetings that seem sort of pointless.
Yeah, probably should build that. But yeah, that would solve half the problem probably if a lot of meetings didn't happen in the first place.
Trust me, I have a lot of meetings, and some of them I'm like, why are we having this meeting?
Yeah. Well, what I will say is that what we found is so we put a timer during the meeting, and we have certain sort of elements in the interface that guide you to be mindful of why you're having the meeting. The fact that it says add an agenda item, it's not a blank Google Doc, forces you to think about why you're having the meeting in the first place. So we find that a byproduct as a result is that some meetings do get canceled because there's no agenda. We also find that meetings are shorter because there's a timer there, and when it goes down to 0, people actually feel like they're not going to be a jerk if they say it's time to move on. There's a third party telling you that it's time to move on. So we'll work on building something that just kills all meetings. We'll get there.
Cool. All right. Anne, you want to? There you go.
Great presentation.
Thanks.
I have one question, 2 parts. First of all, how did you get a 2-letter domain? That's awesome. You don't see those
Dead
anymore.
bodies. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
awesome. Okay, cool. So one of the things I struggle with as an agency is that there are older people, right? And my concern would be that in using this tool that some of my older clients, when I say older, I mean like 50s, 60s, maybe wouldn't be as inclined to do follow-ups and this sort of thing. So what is the mechanism for follow-ups? Because I've found that, especially with clients, you want to politely remind, but you don't want to harass, and you definitely don't want to highlight the fact that they're not following up. So how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll sidestep the first and save that for after the presentations. But basically, regardless of age, just getting people to follow up, period, is hard. And we find that we make it really easy in the sense that anybody with the link can view the meeting, so it doesn't require them to sign up for just one more thing, and there's some fatigue around new tools, right? So that's part of it. And then part of it is taking the burden off of you. So it's one thing if you badger them saying, hey, you have to finish this, you have to finish this. But if you get this pretty email from Do that takes the follow-ups and puts it at the top and brings like group accountability to it as opposed to you having to badger people, we're hoping that that sort of offloads you having to be annoying or pushy to get people to do things and empowers them, because it's nicer to have some third party with pretty colors tell you to do something than somebody hovering over you.
I had one question. Hi, my name is John Gidding. I'm an architect.
Hey.
My question has to do with sort of subjectivity and relativity. So when you have a meeting, sometimes the end result might be one thing, but it wasn't necessarily planned in the meeting. And so these sort of buzzwords of, oh, let's look up the Uber meeting, maybe the result of that meeting had nothing to do with Uber. So I guess part of my question is, the documents you upload, are they then searchable for the search that you're looking for? And the other question is, when you design this interface that allows for, this was a successful bullet point, we were able to reach this decision, sometimes that decision is not reached by somebody else that was in that meeting. You know, they disagree as to whether or not that was really something that was decided on. So do they then have the option to sort of unapprove or whatever it might be?
Yeah, both good questions. And I'll say as an aside, there's a lot of nuance to meetings. Everybody here, when they say bad meetings, we all have something somewhat similar, but there's always something special about what makes them really bad. So I'd say the first thing is the product's entirely searchable. That's part of the power. Because what good is it if it only searches one part of it, like the meeting title? It's not that helpful. And so that's one thing, and then the vision is to create this canvas where everything is connected and more useful. And can you clarify the second part of your question? I know you don't have a microphone. Yeah. Sorry, Miles.
I'm an architect, and in some of our meetings, somebody says, "Oh, that pattern tile was decided on. We're good." And somebody else might say, "You're crazy. We'll never let that fly. That'll change in 2 weeks." You know, so there's sort of a subjectivity to as to whether or not that successful bullet point was reached.
Sure, got it. So it is fully collaborative. Everybody can edit it. Everybody can change things from a follow-up to an outcome, for example, when something's done, and vice versa if it is not done for some reason. That subjectivity we want to fix, though, because if people don't have an understand and don't agree with what the outcome was, and they're just nodding along like, yeah, sure, or they don't actually believe it, and that's just buried, it doesn't really help anybody. So I think what we do is we bring that to the forefront, because if something's marked as an outcome, it's very visible that that is what the agreement is. And so we're driving people towards a point of consensus, and that's our way of solving that problem. So, see, I'm out of time.
We are out of time.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Do.com.